What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're here for Week 12 NFL picks and predictions. Last week we were 10-4 on the week, hoping to get to 11-4 if the Cowboys can beat the Raiders tonight. But our season total is now 108, 54-1 on the season, bringing us to a 66.7% win rate on the year. I like to compare that with the best pickers in the world on the ESPN Pigskin Pick'em site. There's a new number one at 123-39 on the season, which is a 76% win rate on the season, which is absolutely incredible. But we have four teams on bye this week. We have the Broncos, the Chargers, the Dolphins, and the Commanders. And this is the second to last bye week of the season, the last bye week being week 14. So with that said, let's get into the first matchup here, the Thursday night matchup between the Bills at 7-3 at the Texans 5-5. Both of these teams coming into this game are on 4 days rest. Both of these teams really do need to win this game. The Patriots are leading the AFC East. The Colts are leading the AFC South. So both the Bills and the Texans are in wild card positions at the moment. And it looks like Davis Mills is going to be starting this game for the Texans, who's been serviceable. He's 2-1 starting for this team, but he hasn't been all that great. He threw the ball 41 times last week versus Tennessee. The offense wasn't all that efficient. They were 4 for 13 on third downs. And I do have a tough time picking this game. The Texans have a really solid defense, probably a top 3 defense in the NFL. I like Nico Collins. I think the Bills are kind of probably going to struggle against this, running attack with Marks and Nick Chubb, which I think is a nice 1-2 punch running attack for the Texans. But I just think Josh Allen and James Cook do enough in this game to outscore the Texans. Josh Allen, we saw him have 6 total touchdowns in the game last week versus Tampa Bay. Give me the Bills to win this game 23-17. Then we have the Steelers 6-4 at the Bears 7-3. Give me the Bears with 47% of people picking them. Both the Steelers and the Bears are atop of their divisions, leading their divisions. The Bears are 7-1 in their last 8 games. They're on a 3-game winning streak. And they really haven't been asking Caleb Williams to do all that much. They ran the ball almost 40 times last week versus Minnesota. I know the Bears defense isn't all that great. They do lead the league, though, in takeaways. You're looking at Aaron Rodgers, though, for this matchup. He's been getting beat up the last couple of weeks. He left last week's game with a hand injury. A lot of people are saying Mason Rudolph even looked better than Rodgers last week, coming into the game in Cincinnati. I think he's a serviceable quarterback, but I do think the Bears, they play pretty good at home. They've only lost one home game this season, week 1 versus the Vikings. The Bears are also 19-8 all-time against Pittsburgh. So give me the Bears to win this one in a close one, 24-20 Bears. Then we have the Colts at 8-2 at the Chiefs 5-5. Give me the Chiefs with 58% of people picking them. The Colts are coming off of the bye. They added Sauce Gardner at the trade deadline, which I thought was an interesting move. They kind of put all of their chips in for this season. But I still think the secondary is susceptible to some big plays. I don't think this Colts, pass rush is all that consistent or all that great. And the Chiefs have been playing some pretty nice pass rushes the last couple of weeks at Buffalo, at Denver. And I know it sounds crazy, but I don't think the Colts play all that great outdoors. I think they're a much better indoor team. 7 of the Colts' first 8 games were indoors. And then I'm looking at the Chiefs. They're in a really desperate spot right now in the season, especially looking at their division. So give me the Chiefs to win this game 28-20. Then we have the Buccaneers at 6-3 at the Rams 7-2. Give me, 78% of people picking the Rams. This is obviously a big game, a big-time matchup, but at the same time, the Buccaneers have one of the easiest remaining schedules after this game, and they play in probably the weakest division in the NFL, in the NFC South. So I think the Buccaneers are going to be all right, even if they lose this game, which I have them losing. The Rams, they've just been great. They've won the past 5 games that they've played. This is the second consecutive game for them in Los Angeles at home. I think Kyren Williams has been running this ball really well as well. And the Bucs, they still got to get healthy. They still don't have guys like Bucky or Godwin or Evans. But I still think they're, a dangerous team. We saw 9 lead changes in that game versus the Bills last week. But give me the Rams to win this game, second consecutive game at home. Then we have the Seahawks at 7-3 at the Titans 1-9. The Seahawks defense has been really good this season. I think that they still gave them a chance to win that game in the end against the Rams, even though Sam Darnold threw 4 picks in that game. But the Titans, though, I just don't know how they win this game. Calvin Ridley is going to be out for the season. A lot of the other receivers for the Titans are also banged up. So giving the Seahawks to win this game 28-14. Then we have the Patriots at 9-2 at the Bengals 3-7. This game is going to be in Cincinnati, and Cincy hasn't really traveled all that much in the last month. But the Patriots do have 3 days rest on the Bengals here in this matchup. I do think the Bengals could have a little bit of life in them because it looks like Joe Burrow is going to be coming back soon, likely in 2 to 3 weeks. But at the same time, this Bengals defense really hasn't been good. I think Drake May is going to torch this defense, probably one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Flacco, he's 1-4 starting for this team. Bengals fans hope that he would stack more wins before Burrow got back. But right now, I just don't see a world where the Bengals win this game. I do like the Bengals receivers, and I think they're dangerous. But I think that the Patriots, they do just enough, 31-26. Then we have the Giants at 2-9 at the Lions 6-3. Give me the Lions with 98% of people picking them. The Lions, I think they play great at home. I think the Lions have what the Giants are missing, a lot of talented skill players. I think Gibbs and Montgomery are going to have a big day against this Giants defensive line that hasn't really stopped the run all season long. So give me the Lions to win this game 31-21. Then we have the Vikings at 4-6 at the Packers 6-3-1. Give me the Packers with 85% of people picking them. The Vikings, they've lost, the last 4 out of their 5 games that they've played. The Packers, though, they've been a tough team to pick. They win interesting games like Detroit and Pittsburgh, but then lose to the Panthers and the Browns. I think both of these teams have been relatively solid on defense. I think it's been more so the offensive struggles at times in this season. Last week we saw the Packers with 7 drop passes. We saw the Vikings also with some big-time drops last week. But I just haven't been impressed with J.J. McCarthy. I think he should be doing more, especially with all the pieces he has on this offense. I think the Vikings do have a really nice running game in Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, but give me the Packers to win this game 20-13. I don't really feel comfortable picking this game, but I just can't pick the J.J. McCarthy-led Vikings right now. Then we have the Jets at 2-8 at the Ravens 5-5. Give me the Ravens to win this game with 98% of people picking them. The Jets just benched Justin Fields for Tyrod Taylor. So that's kind of interesting, but I don't think that really improves the situation. And I'm looking at this game. The Ravens, they have 3 divisional games in a row after this one. I think they have to take care of business here and just kind of stack wins. I think the Ravens win this game 25-18. Then we have the Jaguars at 6-4 at the Cardinals 3-6. I went back and forth with this game. I think this could be a potential upset game. Jacoby Brissett's been pretty productive. He hasn't been great, but he had 47 completions last week versus San Francisco, which was the most of all time. But I just don't think there's enough juice here without Marvin Harrison for the Cardinals or James Conner. I just don't think there's enough juice there. The Cardinals defense, I thought it was pretty decent this season, but they gave up, back-to-back 40 points, in back-to-back games. But it does kind of scare me picking, the Jaguars. I don't think Trevor Lawrence has played all that great this season or given you all that great of quarterback play. I know they had a good game against the Chargers last week. But I think Arizona also has a nice home field advantage in Arizona. So I went back and forth with this game, but give me the Jaguars to win this one 26-21. Then we have the Eagles at 7-2 at the Cowboys 3-5-1. Give me the Eagles, to go to 8-2 after this game. I think this is a dangerous game because the Cowboys are kind of desperate, and I think the Cowboys kind of play better at home. And then you're looking at the Cowboys, they just added Quinnen Williams too, which I think is a nice trade deadline move. But I just think the Eagles are a better team. It is anybody's game though on a divisional, it's a divisional matchup here. So I don't know. It's a tough one to pick, but give me the Eagles 24-22. We still haven't seen the game tonight. Then we have the Browns at the Raiders. Give me the Raiders to move on to 3-7 with 65% of people picking them. It's a tough spot here. I think that, Dylan Gabriel is going to be concussed out of this game. It looks like Shedeur Sanders is going to be starting this game, so who knows what we're going to get out of him. He looked decent in the limited snaps that we saw from him last week. But I think Bowers and Gentry do just enough for this Raiders team to win this game. This Browns defense has been great, pretty great all season long, but I think you can only do so much with this kind of lackluster offensive play that you're getting. So give me the Raiders to win this game 17-16. It's the second consecutive home game for the Vegas Raiders. Then we have the Falcons at 3-6, at the Saints 2-8. The Falcons, they've lost 5 games in a row. I think they're desperate for a win. They've lost back-to-back overtime losses as well. Kirk Cousins is going to be starting for this game, which isn't great, for an injured Penix who looks like is out for the season. But the Falcons, they're still heavily favored in this game. I think that kind of shows you how bad the Saints are, who are coming off a bye, no less. Saints won their last matchup that they played in Carolina. I just don't see them doing it again. I don't really trust this team. I think the Falcons win this game 17-13. Then we have the Panthers at 5-5, at the 49ers 6-4. Give me the 49ers to win this game with 90% of people picking them. Purdy comes back last week for the first time since week 4, and he looks great. McCaffrey, was a big part of that offense last week as well. I think Shanahan and Saleh are one of the better coaching duos in this league. This is always a really disciplined team in the 49ers. It's obviously a very banged up, injured team, but at the same time, I think they're a competitive team. I think you do have to watch out for Rico Dowdle and Bryce Young. I think they could give you some trouble. The Panthers, though, they're a weird team. They can beat anybody. We saw them beat, teams like the Packers and lose to teams like the Saints. But this is a long road trip. Give me the 49ers to win this game at home 27-19. Those are my picks for this week. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be back next week, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.